Hello everyone. This video is brought to you by Newton's Group of Institutions. This is Arvind Egreddy from Department of CSE. In this video, I'll be talking about introduction to data structures. And in our next video, we will talk about the searching and sorting. So coming to the topics what we are covering in this video, we are going to discuss about introduction to data structures, classification and operations on data structures, preliminaries of algorithms, and algorithm analysis and complexity. And the remaining 4 topics we will discuss in our next video. Now, coming to the introduction to data structures, a data structure is a way of storing data in a computer so that it can be used efficiently and it will allow the most efficient algorithms to be used. And the data structures should be seen as a logical concept that must address 2 fundamental concerns. First, how the data will be stored, and second, what operations will be performed on it. So we can say that a data structure is a special way of organizing and storing data in computer so that it can be used efficiently. So here, arrays, linked lists, stacks, queues, trees, graphs, etc. are all data structures that stores the data in a special way so that we can access and use the data effectively and efficiently. Coming to the classification of data structures, the data structures can be classified as simple data structures, compound data structures, linear data structures, and non-linear data structures. So as discussed in our previous slide, anything that can store data can be called as a data structure. Hence, integers, float, boolean, character, etc. are all data structures. And these are known as primitive data types. So when we have some more complex data structures which are used to store large and connected data. Some examples of these abstract data structures are linked lists, trees, graphs, stacks, queues, etc. So here, all these data structures allow us to perform different operations on the data. And we select these data structures based on which type of operation is required. So here, coming to simple and compound data structures, simple data structures can be constructed with the help of primitive data structures. A primitive data structure is used to represent the standard data types of any of the computer languages. Variables, arrays, pointers, structures, unions, etc. are all examples of primitive data structures. Coming to compound data structures, the compound data structures can be constructed with the help of any one of the primitive data structures, and it is having a specific functionalities, and it can be described by user, and it can be classified as linear data structures or non-linear data structures. Here, linear and non-linear data structures. Linear data structures can be constructed as a continuous arrangement of data elements in the memory. It can be constructed by using array data type. In the linear data structure, the relationship of adjacency is maintained between the data elements. Whereas coming to non-linear data structures, these non-linear data be constructed as a collection of structures and can randomly distributed set of data items joined together by using a special pointer tag. So in non-linear data structures, the relationship of adjacency is not maintained between the data items. And the data structures are being classified based on its characteristics. So we have linear data structures, non-linear data structures, and we also have homogeneous, non-homogeneous, static, dynamic structures. So all these are based on their characteristics, they have been classified. So as we have seen that linear data structures, the data items are arranged in a sequential order, and we said that the example is an array. Whereas in non-linear data structures, the data items are not in sequence, and the example is trees and graphs. Whereas in homogeneous data structure, all the elements of the same type are considered to be homogeneous. Again here the example is same arrays. Coming to non-homogeneous data structures, the elements may or may not be of the same type. So here we can take the example as structures. Coming to static data structures, these are those whose sizes and structures associated with the memory locations are fixed at the compile time. So again the same example we can take is arrays. Coming to the dynamic structures, these are those which expand or shrinks depending upon the program need and its execution. So here the example for the dynamic data structure is linked list using pointers. And the different operations that we are going to perform on these data structures are adding an element, deleting an element, traversing the element, sorting the list of element, searching for a data element. Now coming to the abstract data types, this is what we have discussed till now. So in computer science, an abstract data type is a mathematical model, and these are the data types defined based on their behavior or characteristics from the point of view of the users. So an abstract data types sometimes abbreviated as ADT, which is a logical description of how we are viewing the data and the operations that are allowed without regard to how they will be implemented. So by providing this level of abstraction, we are creating an encapsulation around the data. So the data is that by encapsulating the details of the implementation, we are hiding them from the user's view. This is called information hiding. Now, coming to the definition of an algorithm, informally, an algorithm is a finitely described computational procedure that transforms an input into an output in a finite number of elementary steps and then halts. So, an algorithm is a set of instructions to be followed to solve a problem. There can be more than one solution to solve any given problem. But an algorithm can be implemented using different languages on different platforms. So the algorithm must be correct so that we can solve the problem correctly. So finally we can say that an algorithm is an step-by-step procedure to solve a given problem. So an algorithm may be defined as a finite sequence of instructions, each of which has a clear meaning and can be performed with an finite amount of effort in finite length of time. So the word algorithm originates from the Arabic word algorithm. Okay. Now coming to the structure of an algorithm, here an algorithm is written in a simple English and is not a formal document. So the algorithm must have the following structure: input setup, assignment step, decision step, repetitive step, and output step. Now coming to the properties of an algorithm should have the following 5 characteristic features. First one is finiteness. That is, an algorithm must terminate after finite number of steps. And the second one is definiteness. The steps of the algorithm must be precisely defined. Then the third one is generality. So here in each step in an algorithm is unambiguous. This means that the action specified by the step cannot be interpreted in multiple ways and can be performed without any confusion. And it must be effectiveness. So here the operations of the algorithm must be basic enough to put down the on pencil and paper. And the fifth one is input output. So the algorithms must have a certain initial and precise inputs and outputs that may be generated both at its intermediate and final steps. And here an algorithm accepts 0 or more inputs and produces at least one output. So here, coming to algorithm analysis and complexity, analyzing an algorithm is to quantify the resource, that is running time, memory usage, etc. required by the algorithm. Here, the analysis is constructed related to some model of computation. For the purpose of analyzing an algorithm, we assume that the underlying model is an random access machine model. So here we take resource usage as a function of input size, and typically the worst case behavior we measure. Of course, it is very hard to determine the exact resource requirements of an algorithm, since it depends on the low level implementation of an algorithm and the computer architecture. Whereas coming to the complexity for any given problem, there should be probably be many different techniques to solve it. Thus, it becomes necessary to define the performance measure that can be used to judge the different algorithms what we are using. So here we use two popular measures, that is, one is the time complexity and the other one is space complexity. So the time complexity of an algorithm is a program, is a function of the running time of the algorithm or a program. Whereas the space complexity of an algorithm or a program is a function of the space needed by the algorithm or a program to run to completion. Coming to time complexity, the time complexity of an algorithm simplifies the total time required by the program to run till its completion. So the time complexity of an algorithm is most commonly represented using the big O notation. So it is an asymptotic notation to represent the time complexity. Here, time complexity is most commonly established by counting the number of elementary steps performed by the algorithm to finish the execution of that particular program. So the time complexity of an algorithm can be calculated by using two methods. One is posterior or empirical analysis, and the second one is prior or theoretical analysis. So here the posterior analysis is a relative analysis, and it depends on the language of the compiler and the type of the hardware what we are using. And this gives us the exact answer, and it does not use any asymptotic notations, and the analysis differ from system to system. Whereas coming to prior or theoretical approach, here in the prior or theoretical analysis, it is an absolute analysis. It is independent of the language of compiler and the type of the hardware what we are using. Here it will give us an approximate answers. It will not give the exact answers. It will give us only the approximate answers. And these approach uses the asymptotic notations. Now coming to the examples here. Here you can see one example. So let us estimate the frequency count of the statement x is equal to x plus 2 occurring in following three programs: segment A, segment B, and segment C. For suppose in this simple statement, the time complexity of a function is considered as an big O of 1. That is, we can sometimes also read as order of 1. So if it does not contain loops or recursions and a call to any other non-consistent time functions, then the function has order of 1 time complexity. So here, if you see here, of course, this particular example, what I have shown in my left corner bottom, is having a loop that runs a constant number of times. So it is also considered to have an order of 1 or big O of n, 1. For example, the following loop, what we have shown here is having big O. Whereas coming to this particular slide here, the time complexity of the loop is considered to be as big O of n. So if the loop of variable is incremented or decremented by a constant amount, then it is order is big O of n. So here what I am doing, I am incrementing the constant value. So that's the reason this particular problem is having the order as a big O of n. So coming to the third segment C. So in this we are using nested loops. So the time complexity of the nested loops is equal to the number of times the innermost statement is executed. So in this, the time complexity is order of n square. So if we are using nested loops, then the time complexity is order of n square. Whereas coming to time complexity of big O of log n, here the time complexity of a loop is considered as big O of log n if the loop variable is divided or multiplied by a constant amount. So here in these two examples, if you are seeing, I am using multiplication. In the second example, I am using, in the for loop, I am using division. So for such a kind of loops, the order of the time complexity will be big O of log n. Okay, so for example, for binary search that has order of log n times complexity, let us see the mathematically how this is big O of log n. So here the series that we get in the first loop is 1, in the second loop it will be c, in the third loop it will be c square, in the fourth loop it will be c cube, in the k plus 1th loop it will be c power k. So if you put k equals to log n c, we get c n log n to the base c power log n to the base c, which is n. So therefore the time complexity of this program segment will be order of log n. Coming to time complexity of big O of log n, here the time complexity of loop is considered as big O of log n if the loop variable is reduced or incremented exponentially by a constant amount. So if you are decrementing or incrementing by exponential. So here in this particular example, you are using power, and here you are using fun. Here the function is nothing but it is square root or cube root. So if you are using cube roots or powers, square roots, then the time complexity will be order of log n. So the time complexity of the program section is order of log n. Now coming to the big O. So the big O defines the upper bound of an algorithm. It bounds a function only from above. So it takes linear time in best case and quadratic time in the worst case. So the big O notation is useful when we have only upper bound on time complexity of an algorithm. And here we are going to define it as f of n is equal to big O of g of n. We read as f of n is big O of g of n if there exists a positive integer n0 and a positive number c such that f of n is less than or equal to c, and mod g of n for all n greater than or equal to n0. So here g of n is the upper bound of the function. So in upper bound we are going to use big O notation. So coming to the second notation, that is omega notation. So just as big O notation provides an asymptotic upper bound of the function, omega notation provides an asymptotic lower bound. So for upper bound, we will be using big O notation. For lower bound, we will be using an omega notation. So omega notation is useful when we have lower bound in the complexity of the algorithm. And the omega notation is the least used notation among all the notations what we have. Here, f of n is equal to omega of g of n if there exists a positive integer n0 and a positive number c such that f of n mod of f of n greater than or equal to c times mod of g of n for all n greater than or equal to n0. Now, coming to the third type of notation, that is theta notation. So the theta notation bounds a function from above and below. So it defines exact asymptotic behavior. A simple way to get the theta notation of an expression is to drop lower order terms and ignoring leading constants. So for a given function g of n, we denote theta of g of n is following set of functions. So this definition means if g of n is theta of g of n, then the value of f of n is always between c1 times g of n and c2 times g of n for larger values of n greater than or equal to n0. So the definition of theta also requires that f of n must be non-negative for the values of n greater than n0. So now here coming to little o notation. So the little o notation we are going to represent with a small o. Here the function is defined as f of n is equal to big O of g of n, read as f of n is little o of g of n if f of n is equal to small o little o of g of n and f of n not equal to omega of g of n. Now, so all these time complexities we have expressed in the form of a table. So for constants, the time complexity will be order of 1. So constant number of operations not depending on the input data size. Whereas in logarithmic, the time complexity will be order of, that is big O of log n. We can use both the terms order of or big O of log n. So the number of operations is proportional to log n, where n is the size of the input data. Whereas coming to the linear, the time complexity is big O of n, that is the number of operations proportional to the input data size. And in quadratic we use big O of n square, and in cubic the time complexity is big O of n cube. Whereas in exponential it is big O of 2 power n or big O of k power n or big O of n factorial. That is the exponential number of operations. This is a fast growing method. Now the time complexity for the table in the before slide will be this one, you can follow. And here I have given you 3 exercise problems. So please have a look on these 3, and in the coming class we will discuss regarding the time complexity of these functions. So please have a look on it, do it as an assignment and get ready for the next class. So this is my first exercise problem, that is factorial function, and this is my second exercise problem, that is Fibonacci. Okay, Fibonacci sequence. Please try to find out the time complexity of this problem. And this is my third problem, that is a towers of Hanoi problem. So please try to do it as an assignment and get ready for my for my next video. In that video we will discuss about these things. Thank you. If you like my videos, please subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon for the latest notifications. Thank you all.